Right at this very moment, like as you listen to this, somewhere out there, a man is being swallowed alive by the earth.
It is a genuinely terrifying image.
Yeah, he is just sinking. Every single day, he is pulled a fraction of an inch deeper into the ground. And according to some highly authenticated prophetic traditions, his screams are buried under these thick, suffocating layers of dirt. And he will just continue sinking deeper and deeper into the darkness until the very end of time.
Right, and within the context of these ancient texts, this isn't presented as some sort of metaphor or an allegory about greed. It is recorded as the literal historical account of a man named Qarun, or, as he's sometimes known in Western traditions, Korah.
Today, we are pulling from this really fascinating stack of ancient texts, including classical exegesis and historical accounts, to explore how this guy actually ended up in the dirt. I mean, you hear about an eternal, visceral punishment like that, and the mind immediately conjures up like a bloodthirsty tyrant.
Oh, exactly. You picture a ruthless king or a military general who slaughtered thousands.
Right, but Qarun wasn't a warlord at all.
Far from it, actually. If we look at the historical texts, Qarun was arguably history's greatest scientist. He was a man who essentially cracked the code of the natural world. He mastered what we would today call the ultimate science of alchemy.
Which is just wild. So for this deep dive, you and I are traveling roughly 3,500 years into the past, into the dusty, sun-baked streets of ancient Egypt. We're going to unpack how a brilliant, deeply pious scholar transformed into the ultimate historical cautionary tale of unchecked arrogance and the fatal illusion of being completely self-made. Okay, let's unpack this. To understand the sheer scale of his fall, we really have to look at the terrifying perfection of his beginnings.
Yeah, the tragedy of Qarun is deeply rooted in his initial flawlessness. According to the classical commentaries, he was actually the cousin of the prophet Moses.
Wow, so they were family.
Exactly. They were family. They were part of the Israelites, who at this time are living as a marginalized, enslaved underclass in Egypt under the oppressive rule of the Pharaoh.
Right, except Qarun clearly stands out from the rest of his oppressed community. Like, the sources describe him as the absolute most handsome young man among his people.
He was so striking, so radiant, that he was actually given a nickname. They called him Munawar, which translates to the illuminated.
Because his face literally seemed to glow, right?
Yeah, people claimed his face physically glowed.
Yeah.
But he possessed a brilliance that went far beyond just his physical appearance. The texts note that he held more knowledge of the divine scripture of the time than anyone else from the community.
Well, with the sole exceptions of Moses and his brother Aaron, I think.
Right, exactly. He was known as a devoted scholar who spent his time in rigorous worship and study.
I look at that profile and I just see the ancient equivalent of a prodigy. Think of him like the ultimate Silicon Valley tech bro before the ego trip.
Yeah.
He has the elite pedigree, he's closely related to the moral leader of his people, and he has unmatched intellectual horsepower.
He is absolutely the guy everyone expects to uplift their community.
So I'm trying to figure out how someone studying divine scripture, which are texts explicitly designed to instill humility, ends up so corrupted. Something goes terribly wrong here.
It does. The sources describe this hidden snake lying dormant inside his psychology. That snake was takabur, which is an Arabic concept that translates to a deep, blinding arrogance.
A hidden snake of arrogance. That's a powerful image.
It really is. And the mechanism of how hyperintelligence constructs the perfect trap for the ego is fascinating. When you are vastly smarter than everyone around you, it becomes incredibly difficult to view your intellect as an unearned gift or just a variable outside of your control.
You start to think you're just inherently better.
Precisely. You slowly begin to attribute your grasp of divine law to your own innate superiority. You basically start worshiping your own mind.
And that intellectual vanity is just sitting there in the dark, waiting. It needs a catalyst. And it finds the ultimate accelerant, which is unprecedented, history-altering wealth.
The exact method of how he acquired this wealth diverges slightly across our sources. Some classical scholars suggest that Qarun learned a secret theological concept. The belief is that he learned the greatest secret name of God, and anyone who prays using this specific name is guaranteed to have their prayer answered.
I mean, handing someone the theological cheat code to the universe is an immense amount of power.
It is. But other historical traditions lean heavily into a more scientific material explanation. They state, Qarun mastered the actual science of alchemy.
Like literally turning things into gold.
Yes, he discovered the literal chemical formulas to transmute ordinary Egyptian dirt, along with base metals like copper and iron, into pure, unadulterated gold.
When you are an alchemist, your entire worldview is based on control. You dictate the temperatures, the chemical reactions, the elemental makeup of reality. You are bending matter to your will.
Exactly. So when Qarun looks at the gold he is creating, he doesn't see a blessing from the divine. He sees an equation that he solved himself. He believes he engineered his own salvation.
And that psychological shift dictates everything he does next. The economic implications of creating gold from dirt are just staggering. He builds a palace where the structural walls are made of solid gold.
And the massive doors are crafted from silver.
The detail from the source material that genuinely broke my brain trying to visualize it is the story about his keys. The historical traditions both go out of their way to describe the keys to his storehouses. They specify that the keys were made of leather, not metal.
Right, which makes them much lighter.
Yeah, yet there were so many of them that it took a powerful group of 70 strong men just to carry the key rings.
And some specific accounts even state it required a convoy of 40 mules just to transport those leather keys.
Wait, let's actually grapple with the logistics of that for a second. An average mule can carry about 150 pounds.
Okay.
Multiply that by 40, and you have 6,000 pounds. 3 tons of leather keys. How many hundreds of thousands of vaults, storehouses, and underground chambers of gold must this man have possessed if just accessing them required 3 tons of leather?
It is a scale of hoarding that goes far beyond greed into a kind of madness. And that level of material hoarding fundamentally severs his connection to reality, but more importantly, his connection to his people.
Because he doesn't use this infinite wealth to liberate the Israelites, does he?
No, not at all. He uses it to buy a seat at the table with their oppressor. He becomes a high-ranking courtier to the pharaoh, and he actively participates in the oppression of the very people he used to lead in prayer.
I imagine the elders in his community didn't just sit back and watch this happen, right? You don't see a beloved, brilliant scholar turn into a tool of the pharaoh without someone trying to pull him back from the ledge.
The wise elders do actually stage an intervention. They come to his golden palace and plead with him to remember his roots. The texts record them, warning him not to exult, explaining that wealth is a diagnostic tool.
Like a test of character.
Exactly, a test of character, not a stamp of divine approval. They urge him to circulate his wealth to protect the vulnerable. But Qarun's response to them is a sentence that has echoed through history.
He looks at them and says, I was only given it because of knowledge I have.
Yeah, he casually and totally dismisses the concept of grace, circumstance, or divine blessing. He effectively proclaims himself the sole author of his universe.
And once you convince yourself that you are a god, you inevitably demand to be worshipped. Sitting alone in a gold palace just isn't enough anymore. He requires an audience to validate his self-image.
Which puts him on a direct collision course with Moses. Qarun orchestrates what the texts describe as the Great Parade. He decides to put on a display of opulence designed to psychologically crush anyone who sees it.
The sensory details of this parade are deeply deliberate, too. He rides out into the public square on a pristine white mule fitted with a solid golden saddle, and he's flanked by 4,000 servants.
And those 4,000 servants are dressed in pure silk and Tyrian purple garments.
Tyrian purple, that's a really rare one, right?
Yeah, in antiquity, Tyrian purple dye was extracted drop by drop from sea snails. It was astronomically expensive, reserved strictly for royalty. Plus, his servants are wearing heavy gold collars and carrying staffs studded with precious jewels.
Try to picture the visual weight of that before electricity or mass production. The harsh desert sun hitting 4,000 solid gold collars all at once.
It would be blinding.
Literally. The sources describe the crowd as physically dazzled, sighing with deep, painful envy. People are looking at this display and whispering to each other, wishing they had his luck, lamenting their own miserable lives compared to his fortune.
Qarun is weaponizing aesthetics. He is selling the illusion of ultimate success to make everyone else feel small. But Moses represents a moral authority that cannot be blinded by shiny metal. So Moses comes to Qarun's palace and demands that he pay zakat.
And zakat isn't just a casual donation. It is a mandatory, calculated wealth tax, specifically designed to prevent exactly what Qarun is doing, hoarding wealth while society starves.
Right. Moses instructs him to give the vulnerable their rightful share of his wealth. Qarun, ever the brilliant mathematician and alchemist, immediately calculates the liability.
And it must have been a massive number.
Huge. Zakat is a small percentage, but when your wealth requires 3 tons of keys to access, a small percentage equates to millions of dinars. His greed flares up. But more importantly, he recognizes Moses as an existential threat to his entire worldview.
Because Qarun knows he can't buy Moses, so he decides to destroy the institution of Moses entirely. Here's where it gets really interesting, because this is ancient PR crisis management at its darkest.
Oh, absolutely.
He's trying to cancel a whistleblower so people stop listening to the message. If he ruins Moses' reputation, his vaults remain untouched.
Notice the psychological threshold Qarun crosses right here. He transitions from passive arrogance into active, calculated malice. He orchestrates a smear campaign.
What does he do?
He seeks out a woman in the community known to have a poor reputation. He brings her into his palace, dumps a fortune in gold coins and jewels at her feet, and gives her a single instruction. She is to stand up in the public square tomorrow and falsely accuse Moses of having an illicit affair with her.
Wow, he is using the exact wealth God permitted him to generate to purchase a lie that will destroy God's messenger. Why a sex scandal, though? Because Moses' authority isn't financial or military, it is purely moral.
Exactly. If Qarun taints the morality, the entire movement collapses. So the trap is set for the very next morning. The entire community of Israelites is gathered in the public square.
And Moses is at the pulpit, delivering a sermon. Ironically, he's preaching about the strict divine punishments for societal crimes like theft and adultery.
And Qarun, sitting amongst the crowd, sees the perfect rhetorical opening. He stands up, interrupting the sermon, and publicly challenges the prophet. He asks, "These strict punishments you are describing, do they apply even if the sinner is you?"
And Moses does not flinch. He answers yes, even if it is me.
So Qarun springs the trap. He shouts to the crowd, "This woman here says that you have committed a sin with her." And he pulls the bribed woman forward.
The sources describe this dead, suffocating silence falling over the massive crowd. The liberator and moral compass of the Israelites has just been accused of the ultimate hypocrisy by the wealthiest man on earth.
The gravity of the moment is immense. Moses flushes bright red, a physiological reaction driven by intense modesty and outrage.
But he doesn't scream or panic, does he?
No, he steps down from the pulpit, walks directly up to the woman, looks her in the eyes, and demands she speak the truth. But he does so by invoking a very specific oath. He says, "By the God who parted the sea for the children of Israel."
He bypasses the public spectacle entirely and forces her to confront the greatest, most visceral miracle she had personally witnessed.
Right, the psychological weight of lying to the man who physically led her out of slavery, while invoking the very power that held the ocean walls apart. It just shatters her resolve entirely.
The sources say her heart melts on the spot. She starts trembling, drops the bags of gold onto the dirt in front of everyone, and screams, "No! By God, you are pure! Qarun gave me this wealth and forced me to lie!"
The conspiracy collapses in real time. The text described Qarun's face turning black with humiliation. His grand, expensive character assassination has blown up in front of the entire nation.
And Moses is deeply devastated that the corruption has reached this level of malice. He falls into prostration, weeping, and begs God to finally put an end to this rot.
God responds immediately, sending a revelation to Moses saying, "I have commanded the earth to obey you. Command it as you will."
So Moses stands up, he looks at Qarun, who has retreated to the doorway of his magnificent golden palace. Moses points to the dirt and issues a single command, "Oh, earth, seize him."
And the ground beneath Qarun simply opens its mouth.
But the sources are incredibly specific about the mechanics of this punishment. I mean, why didn't the earth just open up and swallow him in 1 second? Why the slow, terrifying progression? Because at the first command, the earth only swallows Qarun up to his ankles.
Yeah, and Qarun laughs. Even in the grip of the earth, his arrogance persists. He genuinely believes Moses is executing some sort of cheap optical magic trick.
So Moses commands the earth a second time, "Seize him!" The dirt rises and swallows Qarun to his knees. The laughter stalks, replaced by screams of sheer terror. He commands it a third time, and the earth pulls Qarun down to his waist.
What's fascinating here is that this slow pacing is entirely deliberate. It is a systematic dismantling of his worldview. It wasn't just dramatic, it was psychological.
Stripping away his illusion of control inch by inch.
Exactly. When it grabs his ankles, it exposes his persistent mockery. When it hits his knees, his physical dominance is broken. He cannot run. When it reaches his waist, the texts note he looks around and watches his massive golden palace, his silver doors, and his wealth sinking into the dirt alongside him.
He realizes 3 tons of leather keys cannot open a door out of the ground. He has lost his material security. Stripped of his leverage, he looks at Moses and starts pleading by their family ties. He cries out, "Moses, I am your cousin, have mercy on me."
But Moses' heart has been hardened by the sheer scale of Qarun's betrayal and oppression. He does not yield. He commands the earth a fourth time. A final jolt pulls Qarun down to his neck.
And then the dirt closes over his head, swallowed by the exact element he used to transmute into gold. It's such a haunting image.
It really is.
But our sources reveal that the story doesn't end when the dirt settles. The immediate aftermath features a divine reprimand of Moses that shifts the entire philosophical weight of the event.
Yes, once Qarun is gone, God speaks directly to Moses, delivering a profound and heartbreaking truth. God says, "He called out to you 70 times, begging you for mercy, and you did not forgive him. By my honor and majesty, if he had called out to me even once, I would have saved him."
Oh, wow. That reframes everything. Moses was executing necessary justice, but God is demonstrating the boundless, incomprehensible nature of divine mercy.
Exactly. Even as he was physically sinking into the earth, Qarun's fatal flaw held strong. He looked horizontally to a human being for salvation, instead of looking vertically to God.
His arrogance blinded him to the true source of power right up until the soil filled his mouth.
And the next morning, the crowd that had been sighing with intense envy walks past the site. The palace is gone. The 4,000 servants in purple silk are gone. The wealth is entirely erased. There's nothing left but flat, barren dirt.
The sources note that those same people look at the empty ground and say, "Thank God we weren't in his shoes. If God hadn't favored us, we would have been swallowed too."
They finally grasped that raw intellect and massive wealth, when stripped of humility and empathy, are not blessings. They are an anchor.
Which leaves us with a critical reflection on how this ancient narrative maps onto our current reality. So what does this all mean for us? Here's the final thought we want to leave you with to mull over. When we hear the story of Qarun, it is incredibly easy to focus all our judgment on the man sinking into the dirt, right?
Sure, we dissect his arrogance, his alchemy, his belief that his hustle alone generated his success.
But what about the crowd? What about the thousands of people who stood on the street, blinded by his gold collars, sighing with envy and wishing they had his life? Society constantly manufactures new Qaruns by worshiping wealth regardless of how it is acquired or who is crushed to get it. We celebrate the aesthetic of success without ever questioning the foundation it's built upon. So as you look at the billionaires and the hyper-wealthy influencers dominating our culture today, are we just as guilty as the man swallowed by the earth, simply because we are the ones tirelessly building the pedestal he stands on?